All right, everyone. Hello and welcome to another episode, a first episode in a while. I'll be honest, it's been a minute. Just doing the Nunn, and I want to thank everyone for tuning back in. Hopefully, we haven't lost you all. Hopefully, everyone comes back. And sorry for the long absence. I was AWOL for a while there, Mr. Wolf. I was missing longer than F-35. I'll say that. But I was missing. But welcome, Wolf, back to the show. Appreciate having you on, and good to see you again, old friend.
Good to be back, Troy. Thanks for having me, bud. Good to be here.
Yeah. It's good. We stay in contact through text with some other friends of mutual mindset and all that kind of stuff. But it's good just to get one-on-one with you and chat about things. And you are, as many that have watched your show before know, you have a lot. You have a lot going on. You're in tune with a lot of things political and what's going on in the world, though. So it's always great to get your insight. And besides, you've been a great feeder of good guests for us. We've had many of our guests on the show because of you, just because of your connections. So it's been a while. A lot of events happened, man. So much has happened over the last, I can tell you, Wolf, there's been so many times over the last few weeks. I've been traveling a lot, and just life has been busy with a ton of things going on personally and stuff. And
that's the problem with getting older, man, is you just get more responsibility. You can't stand it.
It does. There's just so much stuff doing in the house. You got summer winding down, boys going back to college, work, traveling and stuff. And there's been so many things that have happened over the last month or so that it's been like, I need to get on and record a show for this. Like, I need to get and talk about this. And it's a couple times I've almost just popped up the phone, did the old car video, right? You see so many people that, I don't know why, I guess because the thing holds your phone, but of just like doing a quick 5-10 minute show. Maybe I should do more of those, but just have not been able to get it. But let me get rid of that. There we go. But good to be back. A lot of things to cover, and you definitely have some. We've got some hot ones. So for those that don't know or first time watching us in the show, Mr. Wolf is a veteran, not only of our military, combat veteran of our military, but also of just the geopolitical landscape. That'd be a good way to do it. And now in media again.
Absolutely true.
Yep, so you're a professional at this, unlike myself and Toby. You're legit. You bring.
I've been paid to do this, not this particular one, but in other instances, yes, I've been paid to do it.
Yeah, I've never been paid to do the show either, and I've been doing it since 2007 in some flavor or another. Well, actually, I stand corrected. At first, I was paid on the old show a long time ago, but since Toby and I started this, we're waiting for that payday. It just hasn't showed up yet. So.
Has it been since 2007? The Stu and the Nunn show? Has it been that far back?
No, that doesn't go that. So it started with you served, right? So me and CJ, right. I got back from Afghanistan in 2007, and he and I were both writing for that VA Mortgage Center blog. We were actually paid for that, and didn't know each other. Just for two different persons, and then they asked him to start the show, and I guess he was 2 or 3 in, needed a guest host or needed a replacement, and said, "Hey, I know this guy Troy writes on the thing. He'd probably do really good. He's got a good voice. He knows what's going on." So, they had me come on. Then he and I teamed up, and that's when it kind of all started. Right back then, there was no video. Right, it was just we were just audio podcasting,
free podcasting, just
free podcasting. Still live at the time, right? It wasn't pre-recorded. It wasn't all that. It wasn't clean. You got what you got. And then, it wasn't until a number of years later and a couple different versions of the show to when CJ left and ended his deal with VA Mortgage Center. Then Toby stepped in because he had guest hosted a few times with me, and we had a good click. And then so he stepped in, and then we kind of ended at VA Mortgage Center. We took like a year off or so, and then one day he and I got a hold of each other. So I kind of missed doing it. Let's get back at it. And then that's when he and I started. I think we started Top Talk at the time. I can't remember. We did a show. We did it, and eventually turned into Stu and the Nunn show. So yeah, it's been a minute. Waiting for the first dollar to come in. But anyways, so glad we got you here. Hey, a lot of topics going on. Let's hit on those. And I made the joke first and foremost about a F-35. So for those of those maybe that have not been paying, maybe they've been traveling abroad, are not sure, don't watch the news. There's a lot of people that don't do that just tune into shows like this and podcasts. It's a stealth. Let me just start off. It's the F-35 stealth fighter. So it's stealth. I mean, I guess it kind of did its job. You would just think that, even though it's stealth to the enemy, we should kind of know where it's at. Don't they have like, IFF on them? They kind of have a little.
It was turned off. Transponder was turned off.
Really?
It was in stealth mode. I had an article printed out, or not printed, but published on Soldier of Fortune. And I also talked about this on our good friend Bellavia's show the other day. We had a 20-minute segment on there about it. And the transponder was turned off. It was basically in stealth mode. It was tracking along with another F-35 that was flying alongside. They were in formation. So it wasn't like it was out by itself doing whatever training.
You did, yeah, it's interesting. We never heard about the other F-35. I did not know. I was wondering why it was by itself. Okay.
But when the pilots put it on autopilot, something came up in the cockpit, whatever, causing him to eject. He left the aircraft. It flew on autopilot. The second F-35 loitered in the area to see that the pilot got okay. But in the meantime, as we see, the other aircraft wandered on and just kept flying. I've seen this 2 other times in my career when I was at U.S. Northcom, when we had aircraft where the pilots became disabled and the aircraft were flying on their own. The pilots didn't leave; they couldn't leave.
Okay, as I asked, wasn't the pilot still in the cockpit though? Like
they were in the cockpit, but they were completely disabled. They
gotcha.
They could not respond to anything. Similar to the Payne Stewart incident, which was before my time.
Right. I remember.
But this one, the pilot leaves the aircraft and it just goes on, and then we assume it crashes someplace, and we couldn't find it for 28 hours.
Have you seen the interview with the gentleman that it crashed near his house?
I have not. I've seen the interview that exists, and I hear it's gone extremely viral, but I haven't had a chance to watch it yet.
It is hilarious. You have to watch. It is low country South Carolina at its best. It is absolutely awesome. It is totally viral. This is going to be made to a meme, to all kind of stuff.
But it's funny. I mean, the Air Force comes out and asks for people's help locating it, and then say once they find it, go away.
They wanted crowdsourcing. I mean, did they offer a reward like $10,000 to find their missing, $80 million jet or $1 million? I mean, all the satellites we have, we see all these conspiracy theory movies and stuff where they've got, they always show Hollywood shows, like all the Bourne movies, right? They got satellites that are tracking cars and they're watching license plates and they see facial recognition. And we know, you and I both know from our backgrounds and stuff, we do have some great signal intelligence and satellite imagery intelligence, but you think they could have been like, okay, we know where the dude popped out at. We know what trajectory is on. Can we just point something in that general direction? We should see something smoking somewhere, right? I mean, exactly. we know when Kim Jong-un drops a big deuce, for God's sake. We can hear that across the world through freaking transponders. I get it with stealth. Maybe a design flaw. I don't know. It's probably because this has never happened, but maybe they may want to put a switch in and say, hey, for whatever reason, if an ejection happens, turn off the autopilot. I don't know.
And immediately start transponding something.
And turn the transponder back on. Yeah, don't leave it in stealth mode, right? If pilot leaves the aircraft violently and with a lot of force, like light this thing back up and and you would think, I'm thinking crazy, but you have some aviation background. This is just kind of came to me. So let me ask you, obviously some people would say, well, if you did that, it could crash into a house and a hospital and a children's school, whatever. So if Musk can put cars out there that know where to drive, and if Amazon can put a drone up and deliver you a package, knowing right where to put it down in front of your door, right? You would think with all the map, in my phone, right, I have maps downloaded. I've got everything in there. I don't have to be connected to the internet and stuff. You would think that in that big old F-35 or whatever, they could have all the maps in there, download, which we know they probably do. They have a lot of data in there, and could guide the plane, especially one as smart as this on autopilot, instruct the autopilot to put it down in an uninhabited area, right? Maybe even land the damn thing. We're testing UAVs. Well, we have UAVs, but we're testing, like, from what I understand, there's some testing going on with helicopters and jets that are completely pilotless. Right? Correct. I'm just spitballing here. Well, if you tell me, but doesn't it seem like that would be a thing to build into these planes, as if the pilot becomes incapacitated doesn't respond. Maybe they can force this to happen. He ejects, that the plane just looks for a runway, a road, a field, and just puts it down.
The new B-2 bomber that they're in development, which the B-2 or the B-21, the new
don't say anything. It's not open source now. I don't want you to get in trouble now.
It's open source.
Okay.
It's supposed to fly semi-autonomous, which means pilots optional.
Okay. That's what I think should be, maybe with the next version of upgrades for our jets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for our jets to go through upgrade. They always go through these upgrades and stuff. Or maybe, things like that. They should maybe think about either talking to Bezos or Musk, getting some technology from them so that, this thing can be put down. So for God's sake, everyone worries about the environment. I don't know. I would think a bomber, a jet, a fighter, nosediving into our precious Mother Earth, spilling toxic chemicals and fuel and all that stuff and burning would be so bad for the environment that this present administration should mandate the DOD. I mean, this obviously climate change is the number one existential threat to this world and this country. We have heard them. It doesn't matter about the violence. It doesn't matter about the border. It doesn't matter about Russia and Ukraine. It doesn't matter how this country's going to hell in the handbasket. The dude was just in front of the UN and said is the biggest threat in the world, and the biggest threat to this country is climate change. Don't you think you should make these aircraft that are filled full of toxic things, have them automatically guide to an air, if they lose their pilot, do it like you just talked about what's being developed, and just put it down on a runway somewhere. It could shoot out its beacon. It would shoot out just like when I'm backcountry skiing and that kind of stuff. I have a beacon, and if I get caught in an avalanche, it puts out a notice and tell that I'm caught in an avalanche. Right? We have all kind of technologies like that. We have technologies in boats and stuff like that. It could say, "Shit, I just lost my pilot. I am now a plane that has no pilot. I am putting down in this runway." So the FAA and the air traffic controllers will know, here comes a plane coming in without a pilot. Clear everything out of the airspace. Let this thing come in. Hopefully it knows to lower the landing gear. Let's see how she does.
Cirrus has an aircraft built for general aviation that does that.
Really?
Yes.
I would think ours other. We have a lot of plane craft. They should probably start with the Osprey. I'm just saying. Maybe something. Black Hawk would be next, right? But I know some of those happen. They still have pilots in them, because the pilot leaves a helicopter, you got bigger problems. But it seems like that should be something they do. This just came to me. I literally thought about it.
Cirrus has an aircraft for general aviation, 2 to 4 seat aircraft, light plane, that if something goes wrong, it's their version of an airbag. It will pop a chute and lower the aircraft.
And just nose down and just like a chute.
Just bring it straight down to the ground like a paratrooper.
Oh, okay, so it pop out of the top. The plane will stay horizontal.
Out of the top of the plane,
really?
And just lets it lower down. There's a thing up there like an airbag, and we'll drop it. Whether the pilot can initiate if he gets into trouble and can't land it for whatever reason, boom, pop it.
Wow.
If it gets into an attitude that cannot be recovered, it'll pop.
So I heard yesterday in the news, real quick, I was walking by the TV and I heard a blip about something to the effect that the Marine Corps version of the F-35 has an auto eject feature. I caught it quick. They were saying something that the other ones don't have it. The Marine Corps one has one where if the plane detects something, it will eject the pilot without the pilot even initiating anything. Have you heard anything about that?
Yeah, if he gets on without his crayons, he doesn't have all them filled in.
Yeah, to chew on. Yeah,
thrown out. No, I have not heard that they would have that. And you would think that would be something maybe the Navy version would have, because it's carrier based.
Well, it could be, and I know
they would have to react quicker than the pilot would.
No offense to my Marine Corps brothers and friends, but they could be eating crayons and not paying attention, and the plane's like, "Hey, by the way, you're going down. I know you're busy chomping on that cinnamon red or hunter green, but we're just going to throw you on out." Just kind of kidding, but I'm just curious about that. I haven't had a chance to research again. I was like walking by the TV. It was some expert, and they just made a comment about the Marine Corps one has this auto eject feature, and I was like, Did someone not clean the receptors? Did maybe someone didn't do a PMCS on that? Is that because it just what gets me, and I can't even imagine. I mean, I know how it is in combat, how seconds feel like minutes, and so on and so forth. But I would think if you're an autopilot, it's not like a commercial airliner. I have friends that are pilots, good friends that are, we share some of the same, and I have some other close friends from my past that fly for different airlines. And I know once they get up, man, they're on autopilot. That thing takes it all the way to right before they land. They really don't do crap. They're just up there reading books and talking and stuff like that. I think a fighter jet probably is not meant to be in autopilot as often as a commercial airliner or freight airliner is. It's meant to be a little bit more handheld, right?
Right.
So he's an autopilot. He's just cruising. He's like, hey, we're up. We got to go from South Carolina to DC. We're going to loop around Maryland, and we're going to come back on our training flight. I could see autopilot there. But if an event happens, this is what makes me think this auto eject thing may be legit. Like, he would grab the stick, flip the switch, whatever, like, oh crap, like I just lost an engine or something or whatever, right? I just can't see I can't imagine a scenario. And I welcome anyone watching or listening to please get a hold of us and on Facebook or whatever. Let me know if
especially you Marines that are on the 2-day stand down. Thank you for joining us and not having to worry about flying aircraft today.
I need to get Taco. I got to get Taco and talk to him. But because he's a Marine, he's a pilot, right? And all that. Or was a Marine former, so. But I would think that when that happens, I can't think of a situation. And again, you have an aviation background yourself that I would be like cruising along. Oh shit. Just grab the handle, assuming they're still like up here, and just eject and not think I should probably have turned off that autopilot. Like, I would think something would have happened. You would probably try to recover or take action first before going right to the edge. You know what I'm saying? It seems like that would be like, before I go for the nth degree, like, maybe I should try to de-escalate this situation before I just start yelling MF and.
But haven't we read in several instances where the pilot knew he was going to eject and made sure the plane was headed someplace, not going to run into a populated area?
It seems like you'd want it to be off.
Putting it on autopilot, you want it to stay up there. Whether you pull it off and point it at the ground and then eject or something.
So. Well, I did see a graphic of his route and the flight. It seemed like if that flight kept going, it was heading to the nation's capital, right? It was heading.
I thought it was from Savannah. It heads west-southwest.
Oh, I thought I saw it heading northeast out of Charleston, heading northeast is what I thought. But either way, at some point the plane's coming down, and unless you know exactly how long it's going to be, I would think if you want to put it down and not let it just keep on, you probably want to make sure it's off autopilot, especially if you're over wooded remote terrain. Like, this is a good spot, right? I'm going to have a tree landing anyways when I jump, so let this thing just go down and bury itself on the side of a trees or mountain or something, or in this low country marsh, and not be like, well, it'll run till it runs out of gas. That seems a little bit more, or turn it towards the ocean, right? And
when they couldn't find it for 28 hours, that was one of my suppositions, is that it was headed out to sea.
And just nosedived out there somewhere, right?
Just let it go. Hope it doesn't strike a cruise ship or something.
Like it was another Malaysian jet or something. Like it was just, Malaysian airline F-35 there. But that was a reference and probably a bad joke. Sorry. But
last thing I saw before coming on air is the pilot had actually landed in the backyard of a home.
Oh, he did?
He did, and was picked up. And they had some photos of the Air Force guys picking him up from the home area. So, he was over, an urban or populated area when he went out. But somehow the aircraft was able to head out into the boonies before it finally went down.
Huh. So I'm reading right now that the F-35B variant has an auto eject system, a feature that's tied to its ability to hover in midair. It does that model. The F-35B does have an auto eject system. Not sure what it is. Not sure if that's the case, but I'm assuming it is an F-35B. I don't
Yes,
know.
it was. Yep, it was a B model. C model is the carrier for the Navy, and the A model is the Air Force.
Okay, so that would be tied to the Marines have one that can do that. So I'm reading this article. I'm going to send you the link to it here. So this is from December 2022. I guess an F-35B was involved in a mishap trying to land at Fort Worth. I think I remember that. Remember the one that was real close and it ejected the pilot right near there?
Wow.
The auto eject feature happened, and it can activate without pressing a button. And they're saying that when it happened in Fort Worth, when the plane, they have the video on that link and stuff. I remember when it happened.
I've never heard of pressing a button to eject out of an aircraft ever.
Or I think they mean like, anything.
Not activating it.
Yeah, not activate. Like the pilot doesn't have to activate it. The plane says, "Oh shit, you got to go." Right? Is you're in threat. So that's interesting, right? I know there was some speculation that was the plane hacked, right? There was some. I don't know if they were, naysayers or conspiracy theorists, like, did the Chinese hack the plane and take it over? Did they eject the pilot? I mean,
yep.
Anything's possible, right? It depends on what.
F-35 was found to have a vulnerability to cyber attacks in the logistics system.
Right.
So it wasn't the plane itself, but they could get to the plane's avionics or whatever through the logistics and somehow affect it. That was the fear. But the ALSA system, or whatever it's called, on the logistics support part of that aircraft did have a vulnerability they found.
Interesting. They should probably upgrade their Windows. But
they'll fly it with their Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, they could use that same little joystick that dude had on that submersible, that little Logitech controller maybe. But no, that's interesting. So it is. I did hear right. That F-35B does have that feature. It'd be interesting to see what comes out of it, because I know it doesn't look good for the Pentagon, but it's just a lot of unanswered. I mean, we've seen this happen before, right? We see that like you say, pilots being incapacitated, right? They have a lack of oxygen. They get depressurized, whatever, maybe blackout, pulling heavy G's, that kind of stuff. We see engines go, and sometimes they got to do that kind of stuff. All makes sense, but just to like punch out, it's on autopilot. That would lead. I mean, that kind of sounds like he didn't even have the chance to even take it off autopilot, right? You're cruising around, this is beautiful, going over South Carolina. I'm so awesome. I'm like, what the fuck? Just like, you're out, right? He could have not even a chance to grab his phone, nothing, just gone, right? That, I guess that could happen, right? That could definitely be a reason why it stayed on autopilot. But if so, they probably wanted to make those changes we talked about. Turn on transponder, turn off autopilot, and maybe put a parachute on it to lower it down and not do as much damage. I don't know. Doesn't look good though. Not when you spend, what is it, 80 billion per plane or 80 million a plane?
Actually, if you remember the notes that David gave us, it was upwards of 130 now with inflation and upgrade packages.
Well, hell, man, fuel's getting expensive too. They count in that full tank of gas. I mean, that could be crazy too. That's something. Yeah. So, what do you think this means to the program? What do you think the 2-day stand down was needed? Do you think
I think it was a political cover. I think it was because of, if they had on the F-35 alone required a stand down, that would have forced both the Air Force and our allies to go and stand theirs down, and they probably weren't ready to do that.
Right.
If you think about it, because why would just the Marine F-35 stand down if there may have been a problem in the aircraft or the airframe that wouldn't be on the Air Force or the Allied version or the Navy version?
Right.
So I think they stood down everything in the Marine Corps, saying it's a training issue versus a possible technical issue in the F-35 until they know better.
That poor dude was thrown under the bus before he even got back to base.
Well, they are saying it was pilot error. That was one of the reasons that, with the stand down, usually when you do a stand down, it indicates pilot error.
True. It's like, hey, we got to retrain you. Turn on the transponder, turn off the damn autopilot before you punch out. Assuming that's what he did. I mean, and Grant, like I do, right? And anyone that's been in a high stress, volatile situation, right? We may all think we are going to act a certain way or be a certain way when push comes to shove and the heat gets on us. But, I know I've seen it personally with soldiers I've had and worked with that I thought were going to be heroes turn into zeros when the first bullets start flying, and vice versa. Guys that were pieces of crap stood up and freaking walked into the fire. And no one knows how you're going to act in panic and adrenaline and everything else. And maybe he didn't. Maybe he should have done that, but he was like, bah, and pulled that handle or pushed a button or whatever he did, and on his way out at 300 miles an hour, getting with a rocket strapped underneath his ass, was probably like, oh shit, I forgot to do something.
I left the iron on.
I left the iron on and the coffee pots.
Coffee pots plugged in. The toaster was on.
Yeah, that was it. Oh, I didn't take the hose out of the hot tub. It's overflowing. Or I left the bathtub running. Yeah, so I don't know. It's I'm sure our news cycles we'll forget about this in about next week, and it'll be long said until some report comes out, I would assume, because all the other news seems to be hot and heavy. This one, I don't think it'll stick too long. What do you think?
No, PAO will make this one go away until the General CQ Brown is there to answer questions as a former pilot.
Oh, he's a former pilot.
Correct.
Okay. Well, since you mentioned it, let's get into it. Let's talk about CQ Brown. He is the new chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, right? And he's the first correct. There's a couple characteristics about him that make him the first in a couple areas, right? Is it the first black chairman? No, he's not the first.
No,
that was Joe Powell. Powell was. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What's unique about what's unique? I know there was something about him they said was the first.
I don't recall him particularly what made him the first, unless it was being. Excuse me, here I'm getting stuck. Unless it was being a pilot or something. I don't know if there's been any.
Yeah, because he's not the first Air Force guy.
Nope.
And
nope.
Maybe it is a pilot. Maybe because he was a pilot or something. I thought there was something, but so you know him personally, right? You have some history with this gentleman.
He was the deputy J3 at CENTCOM with me. And we worked on the Bergdahl mission as well as quite a few others, as well as the planning missions for several other kinetic operations that CENTCOM did during my time there. Pretty steady guy, fairly quiet but very knowledgeable. I didn't recognize some of the statements people have said about him in the news recently that he's very into the DEI thing. But back when I was at CENTCOM, that wasn't a thing back in those days.
Right.
But nothing that I ever saw, and we were under some pretty stressful situations, nothing that I ever saw indicated to me that he wouldn't be anything but a decent guy. But in the interim time, given what he's been through since, the early teens, 20 teens, he moved up the ladder fairly rapidly. He was a 1-star when he went at CENTCOM with me, and a new one at that. And then now he's a 4-star. He went on to command the CENTCOM Air Wing over in Gutter. So he had that as well, and as well as serving in the Pentagon.
Yeah, he's punched some good tickets, and he has moved fast from a 1-star to then, but. Yeah, you mentioned he wasn't in the DEI stuff back there, like I said, but to be fair, you knew Fauci before the rest of the country knew Fauci, and I remember we talked about that. And he was quite different back then when you knew him before he got cast into the spotlight that he was put in. So yeah, some power and rank and all that stuff kind of changes some people. So. Who knows? I mean, our experiences every day changes, right? They always alter. You and I both are probably have different opinions and act and do things different from the days when we first met. I mean, that was a minute ago. So, but so do you think he will be? I mean, Milley has a lot of controversy with him. I guess now he doesn't have to worry about passing a PT test anymore because I'm assuming he's retiring.
As if he ever did.
I don't think he did, but at least he doesn't have to worry about any snarky Medal of Honor recipients saying anything to him about it. But he had a lot of controversy, the stuff with Trump, and walking across the street to the church and everything else he had going on. Do you see Brown as someone that will get wrapped up in the, regardless of what
I think he's going to be forced into this. It's going to get very confrontational. I think it's going to get very ugly. I'm sure Congress is going to be involved early on with that. He will face a lot of tough questions about it.
Does he have to get approved by Congress?
They did, as you know, who's the guy, Tilley or whoever that's been having the hold on.
Alabama.
Yep.
Yes.
Who has had a hold on all activity on the Pentagon, promotions, positions, and stuff. They did. I don't want to call it an end run, but they did something so he wouldn't have to remove that hold in order for them to move forward, because Milley is getting ready to retire and they need somebody in that position. You know, it becomes a national security issue. So they did this, and then Schumer stepped in and did something to do an end run on what they were doing, and it got him through. And I think there was two other positions. The new chief of the Army was able to get installed. I don't recall the name of the gentleman or the general, as well as one other one. So those three were able to get through today, so they can take up their positions.
Oh, really?
Yep.
I knew Tuberville. I think Tuberville's his name.
Tuberville.
Yes, he was holding it. Yep. Yeah. So he does have to go through that, and he'll go through those questions. But I mean, that's one thing to get questions and asked about your opinion on this. There's no doubt, right? I think you and I could already probably write and predict what each side's going to ask. I mean, he is CQ Bryant is a minority, and I think there's one side's going to just make that of play into that and use that, and then the other side's going to play into him being appointed underneath the Biden administration, and will he support those things? Obviously, Milley did not help any when he was some of the statements he said about what happened on or after January 6th, where some people could see what he did or said as somewhat problematic, but I just hopefully he can get the office of the chairman back to a place where it is truly agnostic to whoever the administration is in power.
Yep.
Milley claimed that, but he obviously threw himself right into the middle of everything that was political between January 6th and reading about white rage and everything else, right? I mean, he definitely made himself the story and threw himself into the political ring, regardless of what he said. So, normally
I'm a big fan of some of these guys because I know some of them work some really critical skills and critical activities in their background, but Milley was not one of those. Even though, my retirement certificate right here has got his name on it. He's the one that signed it. I don't hold that in any particular esteem.
And it's sad. I heard I knew guys that knew him back when he was a brigade commander in Iraq, and they had nothing but just accolades, right? They were just, I know guys were like, you'll never be, I'll disown you. And I can't believe we're the same, we're in the same unit, because they knew him back then. I guess he was quite a warfighter. He was quite a tactician and was a real soldier back when he was in 06. So I don't know. It seems, again, power and influence and rank can change people, but, yeah. It's Milley had a long run too.
Yes.
Right? Wasn't it longer than normal for a chairman?
Yeah, he had 2.5, almost 3 terms or something like that. He got extended.
Yeah. There's no limit on, right? They can keep getting extended if they want. I guess
he serves at the pleasure of the president.
Yeah. So we'll see. I guess it'll all depend. We'll know what news outlet he'll end up on as a guest commentator. Will he be a Wesley Clark, or will he be a I can't think of his name. Many of the ones that show up on Fox all the time. But speaking of generals, let me ask you, General, he was the CENTCOM commander, McKenzie.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
Right. He's making circles. He's retired now. He was just interviewed. Now that we just passed the 2-year mark of the horrible pullout of Afghanistan, the falling of Kabul. Did you see any of that interview?
No, I didn't.
it is. It's pretty eye opening, and he definitely, he's probably not in the favor of this administration anymore. I mean, he comes out, talks about the mistakes they made, why they shouldn't have done it, why they, that kind of stuff. And obviously, I know some people are like, why didn't he say something at the time? Obviously, he was in that position, right? And there were no generals, no one that threw their rank down.
I can honestly tell you, based on some inside knowledge that I know that will be coming out, there's going to be a showdown on this. And it's really, really going to come to light what actually was going on. I was hoping the same thing would come with the Benghazi issue, because I was there, working the night that Benghazi happened, standing next to the J3, when those calls came in. I'm hoping that those same kind of things will come forth. From what I hear, that may happen based on the leadership that was in place that don't want it to end with the feelings that people have got now, that it was anything successful about it at all.
Well, I don't know how that's going to happen for anyone that's still serving in the administration or in the Department of Defense, right? It's going to have to be ex people, because they're not going to let anyone, right? They're going to give all lawful orders. No one can talk about it, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I mean, he's making the circles now and seems to show remorse and regret and that kind of stuff. And it'll just be interesting to I know some people have been like, you should have did it then, blah, that kind of stuff. And others are appreciative that at least had the cojones to come out. I mean, General, was it McDonald? I think it was 82nd Commander, right? He sat down and, he got interviewed by a good friend, Scott Mann, for his book, Pineapple Express. And he was the only one that did. And he, answered him honestly and pretty straightforward. And Scott and I have talked about that a couple times. And just, even though he didn't agree with everything that the general did, he was very honored and had some big respect for him for at least be willing to sit down and answer questions and talk to him and that kind of stuff. That was pretty big. But I just saw this thing on McKinsey the other day. Obviously, we just had that 3 weeks ago, roughly, when that happened. And it's still, even though it was 2 years ago, it's still fresh for a lot of folks. And that is an anniversary that I think is as significant as 9/11 has been to this country, to most of this country for the last 20-something years. I think probably any combat vet, but definitely any veteran that has served in Afghanistan. The fall of Kabul is going to, like the fall of Saigon for Vietnam veterans, I think the fall of Kabul is going to leave a stain that is not going to be forgotten or forgiven anytime soon.
Not in any way. No, that was probably as ugly as the fall of Saigon. And one of these days I can share a story with one of the gentlemen that I worked with at the VA, who was there the night Saigon fell. And his father was the police chief in Saigon. And that was a very interesting story. But I'm still convinced that we've not heard the last out of Kabul, as we've still got some people working over there to get other people out.
Yep.
And we've got a lot of people that need to be pulled out still. And we've got to deal with the Taliban. It may not be today, may not be tomorrow, but we're going to be dealing with those guys soon. You can mark my words. Yeah,
well, we definitely will. Who's left over there? We definitely with. I mean, that is, they're an enemy that hates us as a country. We stand for. They're not just going to continue dirt and just they're plotting and planning, right? That's their motivation. That's their drive. It's not to live peaceful and prosperous. So it will come back and bite us. And whenever that happens, it'll be a whole bunch of woulda, coulda, shoulda, and finger pointing. And it's too late because all the people that are responsible are dead, and all that kind of stuff. But we'll just see how history judges it, I guess. But So hey, well, we hit on a number of topics tonight. I know there's other things I want to talk about. We'll probably catch up that on another show. But I wanted to. We've been going about 40 minutes, which is a pretty good length of a show. Something we're trying to do is not get them going too long. So I know we want to talk about the Iran deal, which we definitely do. And that'll be coming up on a future episode. But I want to thank you so much, Will, for joining me and joining me tonight and talking through this and giving us some insight, not only into, some of these general officers that are now leading our military, but also, what you know about the aviation industry and everything else. And man, I'm excited to hear what may be coming out of Afghanistan. And then I'll be like, that's what he was talking about right there. And I don't doubt anything you're always spot on. So I know you don't say something out of just guessing or speculation. You usually got your shit wired pretty tight. So thank you so much. Yeah, thank you for joining me, and thank you everyone for tuning in here for Stu and the Nunn. Sorry it's been a while. We'll definitely have more coming out, and more with Wolf too. So we may have a part 2 coming right behind this. So thank you everyone, and we hope everyone has a good night.
Thanks, Troy. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, that wraps up another episode of the Stu and the Nunn Show, and we hope you had as much fun listening to it as we did hosting it for you. Don't forget to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. You can find all these links at stewandthenunn.com. We will talk to you again next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. Also, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Commodity Outdoors, Veteran Outdoors, Enlist 9 Fight Company, Warrior Media Solutions, and BooHammer.com. Thank you again, and have a good night.